was one of those October nights that tastes like cold pennies and wet leaves. The kind of Halloween where the townspeople dim the porch lights and let the kids have their 15 minutes of sugar-fueled triumph before everyone retreats into safety. Casey and I were 11, too old to be frightened by costumes and too young to be trusted alone after dark. We'd been working the neighborhood for hours, pillowcases sagging with candy, trading bar for bar and lying to each other about who had the better haul. We cut across a small wooden bridge over Jackwinkle River out of habit because it shaved 5 minutes off the trip home. The bridge was the size of 2 kids shoulder to shoulder, and its planks groaned under our sneakers. Moonlight made the water look like spilled oil moving beneath the slats. I remember thinking, stupidly, that the night felt ordinary until a black Jeep slid out from shadow on the other side of the bridge and stopped dead center, headlights searing bright into the darkness so we had to squint. It blocked the way, like a gate dropped across us. Because we'd been raised on stranger danger rehearsals, we turned and hurried away, trying to act casual. The Jeep's window rolled down with that cheap motor whine and a voice. Rough as gravel, like an old smoker who'd swallowed an ashtray, swapped out, "Hey kids, come back a second." It sounded practiced, not a man asking directions so much as someone practicing being ordinary. "We can help," he said. "We got candy." I said nothing. I remember saying sorry, because you say the simplest thing when your throat locks. We kept walking. The Jeep couldn't fit over that narrow span, so it drove away slowly down the road on the far side, and for a heartbeat we convinced ourselves it was over. Then, around the corner, an SUV slammed into view like a hammer, tires screaming, brakes locking as it pulled up inches from where we stood. Headlights bleached our faces. The window rolled down and the man at the wheel smiled. Only his smile was a cracked thing with teeth like a fence. A second voice came from the back seat, deeper and ragged. An old man with gray curly hair and a mustache leaned forward and said, "Get in the car, boys. 3 bags of candy." My mouth dried. For a second, I thought maybe someone was playing a cruel joke. Casey and I took 3 steps back at once. The black Jeep that had driven off had circled, done a 3-point turn, and now began to tail us, engine idling just far enough to hum into our bones. We started to run. We ran because running was the only honest option left. My sneakers slipped on wet leaves. My chest burned. The SUV followed, then the Jeep accelerated and came to a stop ahead of us. The doors on both sides burst open and 2 men lunged out. The way they moved wasn't right too slow for their age, like sprinters with weights on their ankles, yet steady and purposeful. One of them reached out and his fingers nearly brushed Casey's candy bag before he misjudged and fell forward with a grunt. We dropped the candy. It felt like a sacrament between us and them. The house at the end of the block, the one with the yellow porch light, seemed eternal for those seconds. We slammed the path, tripping over the top step in our hurry. We rang the doorbell 20 times, a frantic staccato that barely registered in the warm glow inside. My mom opened the door, and I will never forget the look on her face. Shock, then pure animal fear, then protective fury. She yanked us in, locked the door so fast it clicked like a gun, and called the police in a voice that shook with too many trapped breaths. We told her everything: the black Jeep, the SUV, the man with the raspy voice, the one with the mustache who had promised candy. She paced, calling our neighbors, telling them to stay inside. I could hear the tremor in her hands as she repeated the description over and over because she was convinced they now knew where we lived. She made my dad double-check the locks, and then she refused to leave the front window. The police said they would send an unmarked car to keep watch. Casey's parents came over, all of us huddling in the living room like the last animals under a tarp. Hours passed in a tense sideways way. We were awake and not asleep. listening for engines, for the bark of a laugh, or any ordinary sound to betray that the world was still safe. Then, between the blue of the TV and the gray of the morning, my dad shook us awake and whispered, "Come see." Outside, red and blue lights painted the street. The unmarked car had followed a trail. They had pulled over the SUV and the Jeep farther down. I saw men in cuffs, 3 of them, old, ragged, faces like paper left too long in the sun. My stomach unclenched a fraction and then clenched again because relief was a complicated taste. My dad stepped out to talk to the officer. Casey and I couldn't help ourselves. We ran to the doorway and screamed at those men, the 2 kids' instincts for vengeance slipping out in the stupidest, most childish way. Both of us gave them the finger. It was petty, childish, and I still remember the animal pleasure that passed over us as the officers dragged them to the patrol car. Later, when the officer talked to my parents, he told them they'd been trailing the men for weeks, that Halloween was when predators stalk because the masks give cover and the candy gives them an excuse. They'd found candy bags, cheap masks, and most, chilling several Polaroids of children at night near remote bridges. I sat at the table the next morning with my cereal untouched, feeling like the world had rearranged itself while I slept. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the echo of that raspy voice in my head, and I can't shake the image of the Polaroid the cop showed my mom. 2 small figures crossing a bridge, moonlight making ghosts of them. We were lucky. You could call it fate or caution bred into us by years of warnings, or simply the right neighbors seeing the right headlights at the right time. But luck doesn't relieve the aftertaste. Every Halloween since, a car slowly swings through a neighborhood or a window rolls down and a voice asks for directions, the hair crawls up along my arms, and I remember the Jeep and the SUV and the cold way daylight revealed hands in cuffs. The worst part isn't the memory of running, it's the understanding that some nights, the streetlights don't keep you safe. Sometimes the danger is sitting behind an ordinary wheel with an ordinary smile, and it takes less than a second for the ordinary to become the thing that nearly takes you away. Everyone in town knew the story about the house on Miller's Hill, but nobody ever agreed on where the truth ended and the Halloween rumor began. Some said it was abandoned because the family went insane after their daughter disappeared. Others swore a man had hanged himself from the attic beam and now watched from the upper window every year when October came around. And it was one of those pieces of local folklore that lived in the space between joke and warning, and like every idiot teenager before us, we thought we'd be the ones to prove it was just talk. It was Halloween night, cold enough that our breath came out in small ghosts, the kind of night that tastes like iron and electricity. We were 4, me, Riley, Jordan, and Becca, and we had the kind of courage that only lives in people who have never met real danger. Someone said, "Let's go up there just for a picture," and that was all it took. The walk up Miller's Hill felt longer than usual. The slope curved, the streetlight stopped halfway, and the last 100 meters were swallowed in shadow. When we reached the gate, it was half open, like it had been waiting. The house itself looked wrong. The angles too narrow, the windows too wide, every board slightly warped, as if the building had been breathing while no one was watching. There was no lock on the door, just wood swollen from rain, the smell of rot, and a faint creak when we pushed it open. Inside was dust, silence, the kind of dark that felt thick enough to press against your skin. We used our phones for light, the beams trembling over faded wallpaper and furniture covered in white sheets. Becca laughed to keep her voice steady, saying it looked like a set from a horror movie. Riley found a staircase and dared us to go up. I didn't want to admit it, but the air on the second floor felt wrong, heavier, colder. The air itself had been drained of something human. We reached a hallway lined with portraits, all painted faces turned toward the viewer, their eyes glossy even in the dark. One of them had a long crack running down the middle of the canvas, splitting the woman's face into two halves, one smiling, one twisted. Jordan pointed his phone flashlight straight into the nearest frame, then jumped back. He swore he saw the reflection blink. We laughed, called him a coward, but the laughter sounded small, artificial, and died quick. Then Becca said she heard something upstairs, above the ceiling, soft, scraping, slow and deliberate, like someone dragging a chair across the attic floor. We froze. The sound stopped when we stopped. I said it was just the wind. We all wanted to believe that, until the scraping started again, moving directly over us, step by step, toward the top of the staircase. We looked at each other and didn't need words. We ran back down, but halfway to the door, something else caught my eye. A dim yellow glow from the living room, the kind of light that shouldn't exist in a dead house. We turned toward it. A single lamp stood on a side table, cord trailing into nothing. The bulb flickered, and for a second the whole room lit up. And that's when we saw her. A woman sitting in a wooden chair by the window, her face turned toward the street. Her dress was old-fashioned, pale gray, hands folded in her lap, hair long and colorless. The part that made me stop breathing wasn't that she was there. It was that the window she sat facing wasn't just glass anymore. There was a reflection. 4 kids in Halloween masks standing behind her. And in that reflection, her head slowly turned toward us. Riley dropped his phone. The crash of glass was the loudest sound in the world. The light went out. The dark swallowed us whole. For a heartbeat, we thought we could still see her shape glowing faintly in the black. But then she moved too quick, too close. I don't remember screaming, but the next thing I knew, we were outside. The front door slamming behind us with a sound that echoed through the hill. We didn't stop running until the town lights returned and the night finally felt normal again. We swore never to talk about it, but secrets rot when you try to bury them. The next morning, Riley texted, "Go check the local forum." Someone had posted a photo under the thread, "Strange lights on Miller's Hill." It was grainy, shot from far away, but it showed 4 figures at the window of the house, and between them, a woman sitting perfectly still, her face white as the moon. The timestamp read 10:59 p.m., the exact moment we were inside. For days after, my phone camera wouldn't open properly. It froze whenever I aimed it at a window, showing static lines like an old TV. A tech friend said maybe it was a glitch, but I could hear faint scratching sounds under the static, like something trying to claw its way out. 2 weeks later, Jordan went missing after a Halloween party. The police found his car parked near the bottom of Miller's Hill, engine still warm, driver's door open. They searched for days and found nothing. On the 5th night, a neighbor said she saw a light in the old house again, a lamp glowing faintly in the upstairs window. When officers went to check, there was no electricity connected, but on the dusty table by the chair sat a brand new smartphone, screen shattered, camera open. The photo on it showed a blurry figure wearing Jordan's jacket, standing in the attic facing the window. They say the house is being torn down next year, but every October the demolition team cancels equipment failures, accidents, unexplained power cuts. And each Halloween, someone swears they see a flicker of light on that hill, just before midnight, like a pulse in the dark, reminding the town that some doors open themselves. I drive by sometimes, windows rolled up, the radio low, and I swear I still feel her eyes from that upper window. That's the thing about curiosity. It doesn't just kill you, It invites something to notice you back, and once it does, it never looks away. There's something about mirrors that makes people uneasy. Maybe it's the way they reflect everything except what's really there. For Hannah, mirrors were never a problem. She loved old things, collecting antique pieces from auctions, the kind of furniture that seemed to whisper stories from other centuries. One day, at a small estate sale outside town, she found it, a full-length mirror, silver frame carved with roses, the glass rippling slightly like water. It belonged to the Bellamore family, the seller said. They all vanished in 1934. The mirror's been in storage ever since. Hannah laughed it off, paid in cash, and brought it home. She placed it in her studio, facing the window where the morning light would hit it just right. But that night, as she passed by, she swore she saw someone standing behind her reflection. At first, she blamed the lighting. The room was dim, moonlight spilling in through the curtains. But when she leaned closer, the reflection blinked dot, and she hadn't. It wasn't a trick of the eye. It wasn't her. The woman in the mirror looked like her, but older. Dark eyes, pale skin, dark eyes, whispering something she couldn't hear. Hannah backed away. The reflection didn't. The next morning she checked again. Everything seemed normal. She even touched the glass. It was cold, almost wet, like touching stone after rain. But as the days passed, little things started to change. The reflection began to smile when she didn't. Objects behind her moved in the mirror, but stayed still in real life. The clock on the wall, the chair by the window, the plants got all subtly wrong. And then, one night she noticed something worse. The reflection wasn't mirroring her anymore. It moved on its own. He tried covering the mirror with a sheet. That worked for a few days, until one morning she woke to find the sheet on the floor, neatly folded. The reflection stared back, smiling wider now, its eyes hollow, black. Hannah screamed, ran out, called her friend Lily to come over. When Lily arrived, the mirror was gone. The wall was bare. "I swear, it was right here," Hannah insisted. Lily frowned. "You mean that mirror in the hallway?" Hannah froze. "What?" Lily pointed. The mirror was now hanging by the front door. Neither of them had moved it. That night, Lily stayed over. They locked the doors, left the lights on. At 3 a.m., a sound woke Hannah, whispering. Soft, rhythmic, like someone repeating a name underwater. She turned toward the hallway. The mirror was glowing faintly, like moonlight trapped behind glass. Lily stood in front of it, her eyes unfocused. "She says you're almost ready," Lily murmured, voice flat, distant. Hannah grabbed her shoulder, Dot ice cold. The reflection behind Lily was smiling. Not Lily's smile, but something else's. Then it lifted its hand and reached forward. Through the glass, the surface rippled and a pale arm slid out, grabbing Hannah by the wrist. She screamed, pulling back, but it was too strong. Her hand sank into the mirror, the surface swallowing her skin like liquid metal. The reflection's mouth opened wider and wider until it split its face. The last thing Hannah saw before blacking out was her own terrified face, but from inside the mirror. When Lily woke in the morning, she found the studio door open. The mirror stood quietly, spotless, the glass clear as water. Hannah was gone. The police searched for days, no sign of struggle, no fingerprints, no trace. Only her phone lying on the floor recording. The video showed Hannah standing before the mirror, whispering softly. "It's okay, she just wants me to see." Then she walked forward and vanished. Weeks later, Lily tried to sell the mirror. The collector who came to inspect it leaned close, admiring the craftsmanship. "Beautiful piece," he said, "almost looks alive." As he turned to leave, something in the reflection caught his eye. There, behind his shoulder, was a woman's face, smiling, pressing her hand gently against the inside of the glass. And that's why, if you ever find an antique mirror that feels too heavy, too cold, or seems to breathe when you're not looking, don't bring it home. Some reflections aren't meant to be seen. It was the night before Halloween when Thomas checked into the old Waverly Inn. He wasn't a believer in ghosts or haunted places. He was a travel blogger chasing legends, always trying to prove that the stories were just stories. The Waverly Inn was his latest challenge. Locals said the hotel had been closed for decades, yet when he called, someone answered the phone, offering him a special Halloween stay. The voice was old, calm, and polite, promising an unforgettable experience. Thomas thought it was perfect, a great story for his Halloween post. He arrived just after sunset. The air was colder than expected, heavy with fog that curled around the porch steps. The inn looked frozen in time, its wooden sign faded, windows flickering with soft yellow light, though no cars were parked outside. When he stepped inside, a bell rang gently. The smell of old wood and candle wax filled his lungs. Behind the reception desk stood an elderly man in a black suit, his smile fixed and distant. "Welcome, Mr. Thomas. We've been expecting you." His voice had the kind of politeness that felt rehearsed, like a recording. "Your room is ready. Number 217, second floor." Thomas thanked him, though the man never asked for payment. The lobby was filled with antique furniture, portraits of guests in dated clothing, and a grand piano covered in dust. Yet faint music seemed to hum from it. On the stairs, the wallpaper peeled in long strips, revealing dark wood beneath. Thomas felt the air grow colder as he climbed. Room 217 was at the end of the hall. Inside, everything was immaculate. White sheets, a flickering oil lamp, and a fireplace burning low. For an abandoned inn, it felt strangely alive. He set up his camera, ready to document everything. Around midnight, as he was reviewing his footage, there came a knock at the door. "Room service," a woman's voice said softly. Thomas hesitated. He hadn't ordered anything. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty, but a silver tray sat on the floor. On it was a cup of tea, still steaming, and a small note that read, "Welcome back." He frowned. "Back?" he muttered. Maybe it was a prank? He took a sip of the tea. Was cold. That's when the mirror beside the bed flickered. For a second, he saw someone standing behind him. The woman in an old-fashioned maid uniform, her eyes hollow, staring through him. He spun around. Nothing. But when he looked again, there were now faint handprints on the mirror, as if someone had pressed against it from the inside. The hours crept by. The fireplace went out. The wind outside moaned through the cracks in the window. Then, the door creaked open on its own. A soft light spilled in from the hallway, and distant music echoed, violins playing a slow, waltzing tune. Curious, Thomas grabbed his camera and stepped outside. The hall, that had been dark before, now glowed warmly. At the far end, the lobby was alive, filled with people. Men in suits, women in long dresses, laughing, dancing, drinking, a full Halloween ball, as if from another century. He stared, heart racing. "What the hell?" he whispered, lifting his camera to record. Through the lens, they looked real. Dot vivid, but when he lowered it, the lobby was empty again. Just shadows and silence. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw the old man from the front desk, standing still, smiling. "They like you," the man said quietly. "It's been a long time since we've had a guest who stayed this late." Thomas stammered. stayed this late, what do you mean? But the man just tilted his head. You'll see. The lights flickered, and the air grew thick with cold. A whisper swept through the hall. Hundreds of voices at once, chanting something low, rhythmic, like a hymn. The portraits on the wall began to move, dot faces shifting, eyes following him. Then the people appeared again, one by one, emerging from the shadows, their smiles frozen, their skin pale as wax. Stay with us, they whispered. Just one more night, Thomas ran. He bolted down the hall, down the stairs. But every door he tried led back to the same place. Room 217. The number on the door changed as he moved, always 217. He could hear the music growing louder, faster, like the inn itself was breathing. The floorboards creaked under invisible footsteps. When he looked back, the guests were following Dot slow, steady, their eyes glowing faintly gold in the darkness. By dawn, the police found his car parked outside the inn, the engine still warm. Inside, there was no sign of anyone. The building was empty, the front door locked from the outside, cobwebs thick across the furniture. Only his camera remained, lying on the front desk. The last recording showed Thomas in the hallway, whispering to himself, trembling. They're real. They're still here. They never left. Then his camera tilted sideways, and behind him, faintly visible in the mirror, dozens of people stood smiling, motionless. The feed cut to black. Weeks later, when another traveler passed through town, he mentioned seeing lights on at the Waverly Inn again and a man waving from the window, calling out for help. But when locals went to check, the building was silent, locked, covered in dust. No one has stayed there since, at least no one who ever came back. So if you ever drive through a small town on Halloween night and see a glowing inn that shouldn't exist, don't stop. Keep driving. Because once you check into the Waverly, you never really check out. So if you ever drive through a small town on Halloween night and see a glowing inn that shouldn't exist, don't stop. Keep driving. Because once you check into the Waverly, you never really check out. But tell me, would you dare to spend a night there? What if the legends were true and those smiles in the mirror were waiting for you this time? If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. I've got even darker, stranger tales waiting for you. Check out the next story on the channel right now. It's about a traveler who found something terrifying in an abandoned motel, and it's based on real events. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and remember, some places never really close their doors.